Welcome to the Chairlift, the show where we raise the bar on Canadian snowboarding. I'm your host, Snowboard Mom, snowboarder for 28 years. Today on the show, we keep talking to Crispin Lipscomb. This is the third of 3 episodes with Crispin. Crispin is a 2-time Olympian, and in this point in our show is, in my opinion, the one with the most golden nuggets. He talks about having gratitude for everything that has happened to him. He also talks about sports psychology and developing sports psychology to be in that perfect flow state and overcoming your fears. So, overcoming the unknown so that you can overcome those fears and stomp the trick that you've been working on. Let me know what you think of this show. I hope you like it because I really enjoyed it and I think this is the best episode of the 3. So listen in.
That was the great experience. So right after I came home and I had met who would be my wife in a short time later, and it was really nice. She's a huge part of it, my wife now, and how she supported through that and trusted like what was happening. And it would have been a terrible way to build a relationship, all this awaying and coming and going, and she didn't know anything about that world. So when I came home, it was like I had felt like I never planned even to do it. So it was like really a nice time almost to settle a bit. And then we were down to New Zealand where I became the head coach of the Cardrona's HPC program. And we were really building like in a staff of like 9 coaches, there were 8 Olympians somehow. But they didn't have a lot of organized, structured coaching then at the time. So we all just sort of tried to put, this team, but out of this team have become Zoe Sadowski-Sinnott and like Tiarn Collins and like JJ Rayward, and there's this, the Melva Lives now, and like these are hardcore players in the game now. Came out of this scene in this time, and it was such a neat time. But then I got headhunted and poached by the Russia national team. So I went then sort of right after into a year being a Russia national team coach. So that was like, I was just like back in it all of a sudden. In between, I had done a bunch of Canada snowboard coaching development, and I started building my Canada snowboard sort of like toolkits and really re-entering that level of, so you've been coaching in the world, but like jumping in on the organized structure here at Canada with the NCCP training and the CAC stuff. So that was really nice to get back to. But then right off onto the world again. And there I am in the same town in Austria to do the world champs as this coach for Russia. That was my very first place, Kreisberg, where I started my very first overseas World Cup back in 2003, I guess that would have been. Here we are in 2015, I guess. So it's a really neat sort of way. And then I got to roll with those Russians for, a while and learned a whole bunch and challenged my coaching a lot, I'd say. And then, then we sort of kind of got off of that vibe and we moved here from Whistler to the sort of southeast or sort of south central BC. And I'm in the Okanagan Valley where I came from the Russian national team coach and took on the little local grassroots snowboard team, the Silver Star Freestyle Club, who was a ski club operating for many years, who were sitting on the snowboard sanctioning, because you can't just like start a club in Canada. You got to go through the sanctioning and the governing bodies, and they don't want to hand out any sanctionings to communities that are too small, or they'll like cannibalize each other. Everyone work together, So I came and took on that opportunity thanks to Kathy Estaforov, who was also the same woman who asked me in 2000 to start the BC snowboard team. So it was really lovely to come back, and everyone's still in their, like it was so wonderful to land where everyone was ready and open to my energy and ready to set something up. When I came here to Vernon at Silver Star, we had 6 kids and one like 18-year-old coach. Then we built it up to like, typically around 90 members and sort of 10, 11 coaches. And we've built a training center here on our property right here. We're halfway up and down from the town to the mountains. So it's a real ideal spot. And we run like night sessions and jams, throughout the winter, and our coaches are working a bit more and the kids are training more. And, you can like double the days of a kid. If they're only on a Saturday with our program, they could be out on the Wednesday night. And then in the summer, it turns into trampolines and dry slope rails, and we got the skate ramp, and we do like a lot of the BC trampoline training. Coach training happens here in the summers because our facility's on point. And we have our airbag up the hill, so the kids are jumping all spring, summer, fall, and right until it's covered in snow. And we roll the bag up when the park opens again. And so we're really building. It's been really fun. So I think for me nowadays, my focus really is around like getting my head around like legacy and that long game, because it's been 31 years on a board or more. And, like this is my 30th year teaching and coaching. And I've been honored to work with thousands of people. And I don't know, over a dozen Olympians that I've had close work with before they arrived at their goals. So I've seen it from like running teams of 8 full grown adults with way bigger stakes from their government sport funding whatever outcomes than we would ever imagine in Canada, to like, and building whole national team programs that have done so well. So I'm really grateful for all that. I'm so grateful. This is my 10th year here at Silver Star, and still learning and always learning how to work well with a resort, because it's on their tenure we are operating. I don't own the ski hill, so I've got to be grateful and work together with all of their parameters and issues and resource deployment and like general philosophies of a ski hill and their board is like a factor. If you don't get that, then like don't be chirping, like just learn about what is happening in your community and see if you can help. But then like when it comes to really putting real programs together, it's so hard. You got to get dedicated, heartfelt, sincere snowboarders with experience who are willing to go through. Now you got to go through $1,000 of training and multi-year certification programs, and which is because we're all focusing in coaching. It's like long-term athlete development is about, it's about safety of these kids and developing healthy, happy young people, and while also delivering high performance snowboarding outcomes that maybe, like I think of it as a 10% rule, right? I want one kid to leave here to go to Whistler. If you want one kid on the next gen team, you got to have had 10 go to Whistler, which means you needed 100 in your like development team and 1,000 little riders, 1,000 little chirping chicklets for you to end up with one kid on the development team from your club, maybe, right? And it used to be all these coaches are trying to do that and track that one kid up so they can send them up to the national team and join the national team coaching. But that's not the way I think it works. Is when people can range in on the stage and range of athletes that suits them well for their own personality and their own capabilities, and partner with another person who can prep that next tier up, and then build 3 or 4 wonderful people below that are like those rider chicklet kids. They need to have a great time, and the parents, it has to be easy and smooth, and it has to be like swimming lessons business model so they get it. But then you build the parents as well as your athletes up towards 2-3 days a week and traveling for contests. Like that's hard. You got to have a charismatic, driven, motivated, honest coach who's like genuinely wants to make that happen. And they're hard to get. They're more important to develop our coaches and our culture and like navigate that, because how many kids can you have if you don't have the coaches and the motivation to be genuine and honest? Because it's really hard. Every year, more and more like mandates coming from Canada's sport and CAC, the coaching authorities, and it's all about like safe sport and more women needed in our coaching so that we are supporting young women. So we have, trying to address not only the learning styles, let's say, or those culture pieces, but just like, to all that conflict resolution around having representation up through the stages of authority, or like, up through the levels of politics or bureaucracy in your club. Like inclusion is a big one, but the big one we're on about is like the safety for young teens and young women and young men, and like how to keep young women in sport. One of them is like that it's enjoyable and comfortable when you do get there. So, and like my attitude in building young coaches and culture, I'm like, I resist building girls teams because I'm like, teach the boys how to be like human and respectful and like really, really work hard on the young boys standardizing proper and full and honest, good support of each other. Seems to be a thing that coaches can actually affect, because we can't always hire great young women coaches because there aren't very many young women coaches in the pool to be able to feed every club for every young woman. So I don't know. It's just part of like, when we build good culture, when we build good opportunities and we make it as attractive for our young coaches as it is, then the kids, it's attractive and the numbers are up, the viability is up, then you've got success, and then you've got a fuss around you at the hill. But it can take 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and that's where we got to turn to our new generation of like you. I know you have kids. I got one daughter. It's a time now where like we have totally different stakes than snowboarding isn't what it used to be for myself, and now you're like, I want it to look like this for my daughter, and that's a whole new driver for me, a deep motivator. And it, like, just this last year or last week, my daughter entered the BC provincials, right? So she's just 8 3/4, and she's dropping in on the same course in an open contest with the women of our BC team and fist holding point holders. And she's like rolling through that course with confidence and happiness. I was 19, maybe at the same course, 19 when I did my first one. Like and I'm so impressed with her. But I tell you what I really learned after like 10 years just in this club and programming. Wow, didn't I become of the cost when I'm like shelling out these numbers that from my perspective running budgets are like minimums to pay for the coaches. But as an adult getting the email to my wife's email, I'm like, wait, how much did I say? No, it can't, 2 invoices? No, wait, and day passes? Damn. And a license upgrade from recreational to compete so that safe insurance is involved. And so like, man, I'm really thinking our snowboard team's doing bottle fundraisers and like plant trees and sell flowers, and let's get these kids like funded so that they don't have to pay $390 to compete at the next ski hill. So it's really, really, when you think you just need you just need a kid around you to show you what you need to learn, I think. So I'm really embracing learning in my 30th year, and I'm enjoying new perspectives, and I am enjoying like the outcomes of deep culture build here in our community, and the future's bright.
Crispin, I want to say, I met you some probably 25 years ago. And I think the last time I saw you, you were still, on that quest to get to your first Olympics, I believe. But what I do remember is that both you and Dan Raymond were both natural coaches, as you both got on the lift with me and were convincing me to hit a certain jump and do a certain trick. And you guys basically spent the entire day just trying to coach me through this thing. So,
well, no, that's funny, eh? Some people, they just want to actually help others.
and back then you guys were still competing, like coaching was not your full-time gig for yourself, neither was it for Dan. And you're still doing it now, and you've seen it go full circle for you more than once now, whether that's coaching athletes to their Olympics, or now raising a daughter and introducing her to snowboard competitions. You saying that you approach this whole snowboarding journey with gratitude, that your last Olympics in Sochi, what I do remember is watching CBC, watching the Olympics on TV and your face, and you said, you were just happy to be there. You were like, you were grateful to be in Sochi, to like just be soaking it all in. And that's how I can tell you, I know for sure that you're being 100% honest when you say you approach snowboarding with gratitude, and this entire career of yours has just been in full
Definitely.
gratitude.
Well, definitely. Yeah. Like my folks, they immigrated from the UK. My parents didn't know any about this stuff, and they divorced when I was like 8 months old or something. And it was my mom who got me up to Vorlage in actually the Nancy Green program at Vorlage. You know what I mean? And like, how did she know about that? I don't know, and I'm so grateful. And like, you know, she wasn't buying me a brand new snowboard ever. You know what I mean? But you can't do anything alone. Somebody puts you in a situation, probably at least lifted you to a spot that gave you a choice to make, and you're only making a choice based on how you were like taught to think about it. So I'm so grateful for like even the early story. And like my mom, sure, she helped me too, like when I was like having to quit work to go and do these camps or something like that, and but like right off the bat, they're like, if you do this, then you'll get this money. So I did that. And then they're like, well, if you do this, we'll pay for your plane tickets. So you minimum do that. But then you want to win the money, and because they'll pay you for it, and then like, and I'm grateful that Canada Snowboard flew me to those two contests for me to go and get 6th and 8th. And then I'm grateful they said, like, you should come and finish the year in France and Switzerland because that's on them. And I was so grateful. So I got a 3rd. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be super grateful, but you got to deliver. You got to pull the trigger. My story is all fun and cool from the stories we've told. I've seen a lot of suffering in these years. I've seen a lot of people with like sort of predictable stories where they worked as hard or harder than I did. Like, you watch that documentary Pipe Dream on YouTube. It Dan did not work less hard. In fact, it might seem like he had to worked harder, tried harder maybe. We had the same set of rules. We came from the same little ski hill in Quebec. Like, we were the same age, basically, same coaches, same opportunities, and we have our own adventure. And like, not just because he tried better, you didn't do better. Like, it's not like that too. And I'm grateful for that. And I like a whole bunch of our sport. And when I think about my competing, it was judging, right? So you have no control over them or who comes to contests or who. You get a lot of unlucky stuff happening to you. And then you have like people die around you. You have people don't come home from like a simple adventure out in the bush or whatever. I had 3 people die in like 6 weeks one time when I'm in my young life. And right. So every human on earth, and so, but except for that, it like the time it seems like it's all happening at you or whatever, all those things. That's life. It's life. That's how it is. And when you're young and you're living like in competing or in like any sport, it takes real self orientated, like selfish behavior, selfish focus and attention. And people are there to share with you, but you're doing it for you. It's a self-oriented experience. So you start getting things that shake you off of that. It can be shocking, and some people don't come back from that maybe, or we all have our
Yeah,
stories,
we
and
all experience.
like all of us
Yeah, we all
should.
experience life
Yeah.
differently, and we also have different circumstances, and some of us are, fortunate enough to have a head start and have opportunities, while others don't necessarily get that support.
Yeah, maybe. I'm really into physics, and we're not like, I do all my snowboard coaching now from like physics and biomechanics. So you look at as deeply the base issue as you can, and just go with it, And so it is sometimes with this stuff, like the idea in modern physics where like there is no free choice because you're only choosing based on the situation and the options mixed with the experiences you've had and the opportunity to learn. So again, like, we all navigate complex politics in our sport experience and complex personal, physical, limitations or opportunities and damages and injuries and sudden changes of plan and everything, but like you do control your planning, and you do control your nutrition and your wellness, and you do control like a whole bunch of it too, but only because somebody probably helped you get there. So if you start, I think, always with gratitude, and it's a good way to start up. And then, because then if you do anything, maybe you'll get through your problem, maybe you'll help someone else along the way, and they can up next,
Yeah.
and then at least you're grateful. So when something terrible happens, you start off by being grateful about it, and you're like, I don't see it somewhere. You have a faith that you can find something good in it, in the suffering, or you just go through the suffering. And then the older you get, the more you survive, the more you go through. My wife got real sick and went through a real tough time for many years, and now it's like it's in the past. And that really put gratitude on our plate. Real life stuff what she had to deal with is like makes anything I went through in snowboarding like a joke, like a really selfish spirit, like not so impactful on others, not real threat. Like, my dad died this year, and then my mom got sick in the same week, and it's life. That's life, every one of us. So I'm not saying this to like showcase my suffering. I'm just grateful and knowing that's always around every corner. That's the other side of every great day, and I can enjoy it and enjoy it all there. You talked about being present in the television in Sochi. Aren't you grateful to be where you sit this afternoon, and to be supported by the people that love you? And you should be proud of what you've done, right? And you should be present, because you're only ever going to get now, ever get now. So if you're not present and you're not grateful, probably you're in a tough moment. And I get it if you don't want to be present in a tough moment, but it's the only one you got. So you just be grateful and keep going. If you're in a tough moment, try and find someone to be grateful for helping, or be grateful to yourself.
All right, guys, let's just get a few words from our sponsors, Stone Snowboards. Are you looking for a core snowboard company to support? Well, consider Stone Snowboards. They are sponsoring some of the local shreds. They're sponsoring our Mavericks Snowboard Club, which aims to develop young riders and introduce them to competitive snowboarding out here in the Ottawa Gatineau area. Now, Stone Snowboards has a headquarters here in Canada, and so you know that you will be supporting Canadian snowboarding when you buy one of their boards. Not just that, but I tried some of their boards, and the first thing I noticed was the superior craftsmanship of these decks. They've got Grom boards that feature full camber constructions. They have big mountain boards as well as all mountain or freestyle boards. And they even have many split boards. In fact, some of their split boards have been uh, named some of the best decks by Backcountry Magazine. And not only that, they have full split setups at a fraction of the cost due to their direct to consumer model. So check them out, stonesnowboardscanada.ca. Now back to the show with Crispin Lipscomb.
Like this year, every year with my kids and my athletes, every year I have like a technical kind of main goal outcome focus. And then every year I have a general philosophical kind of like attitudinal sort of like philosophy to share. And this year it's invest in future self and be proud of me today. And I feel like from there, if you keep working that into discussions every day, then we're finding it's worked, where you're like really expanding on where you can, and ultimately you can start to see all the opportunities to invest in yourself, because you're feeling the outcomes of making little changes and sacrifices perhaps on the front end of this, and you're seeing the outcomes that you can be proud of because they're little things you did, and there it is. But then you can take this to like how you're approaching your day. You can take it to your whole season goal plan set and be like, like I want to win and do good and be proud of myself, but I also want to invest in like all 3 spins. So I have like all 4 spins next year. So I could invest in my future self, be proud of me today, but I know I'm investing in my future self. And like you can do, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like you basically jump off of this and it's really
No,
working. And like rallying the team up at the contest. And you're like, you guys nailed it out there today. I am proud of you. You be proud of you. Go,
I love it.
like at the
I
beginning of
love it
training,
because
you can get them to invest in their training runs, but then as they're rolling into that start gate, you're like, I am proud of you. You be proud of you. No, look at me in the eye. Don't tell me your run. Tell me you're proud of yourself because I am, kind of stuff. And like, anyway, those things that I try and keep. I find them in my working life, in my daily life. Those things.
no,
So
it
because it's worked
absolutely.
when the stakes were
I
high.
love those ideas, Crispin, because like you were saying, there's different pillars to having like a successful athlete or successful snowboarder. And you know, that mental game is a big part of it. And having a positive philosophy, like you're saying, will bring that positive psychology. Someone once told me, you know, that the best athletes are happy athletes. And they, you know,
Right, right.
they exude that self-confidence, but you can't be that person unless you have some of those.
Well, that's a learned thing. No one is really not your alpha male is not born to do that stuff. It's a learned thing, and it can be developed for anyone at some levels too, right? And that's what sports psychology is basically taking ownership and control and building tools towards like your emotional ability to pull the trigger. And like I remember the first time we did sports psych at Calgary, University of Calgary. We go back to 2002 in the fall when they put the first team together. And we're in the University of Calgary and we're sitting with this very famous sports psychologist, basically the best we have. And he's like the head professor in that department, whatever. And he's like, okay, so super basics here. How many hours you guys spend on your boards? Oh, yada yada yada. Like whatever, 1,000 hours this winter, whatever. Okay, so how much are you guys in the gym? Oh, I don't know. Rabble, rabble, rabble. A little. I do. I go to the gym 3 times a week, and like half the group's like, I skateboard. I've never been in the gym before. And you're like, okay. So what? You guys like 300 hours in the gym. Okay, 300 hours in the gym. How much do you do your planning? Oh, rabble, rabble. And how much have you done on your sports psychology to allow you to pull the trigger? Crickets. They're like, this is our first time, sir. Like, well, there you go. Why are you wasting your time on all that snowboarding, all that physical training, all that time and planning if you cannot pull the trigger? And that was just a really exaggerated but true point to make and a really good framework to build from. And so sports psych is like, I think applied to good snowboarding, it's building toolkits. But primarily it's about what we call the ideal performance state or that golden zone, that zone we get into, and Eye of the Tiger, where time stops, or people describe it slowing down, or they couldn't like the rest of the world
The
melts
flow
away. It's
state.
actually it's the
Yeah.
flow state. And it's actually the state that people describe when they're in a car accident, actually, right before they hit the rock wall. They describe exactly the same sort of situation where you can actually, you can, I saw my whole life pass before my eyes. That's just because your brain is capable of looking that deeply into the computer that quickly. We just rarely are in a situation where we're like juiced up by the hormones to achieve it in full adrenaline actual, right? Which is, I guess, the state that boxers and martial artists live in, is they actually like stay in the actual threat zone. But that's what halfpipe snowboarding or slopestyle, any of these extreme sports, even the racing and the border cross, we're all there for that like excitement level and like that whole thing. But it's managing that and like, so your ideal performance state is a place that's different for all of us, unique to every athlete or person. But like, first of all, with your coach or yourself, you need first of all to identify your own personal ideal performance state and expect and accept that you ideally want to grow that thing. You would like your ideal performance state to be able to be a bigger zone that is less likely to be disrupted or disturbed, that is able to be maintained for longer and longer periods of time, and that within that space you're like able to develop like more. So that like when an athlete comes up and a coach is evaluating their psych state, you should be asking like, are you up here or are you down here? Right? Are you more excited than your ideal performance state? Or are you lower than your ideal performance state? And at first, an athlete has to become self-aware and build that language set. But as coaches get to know an athlete, as teammates get to know each other, they will get to know and intuit others better than their own selves. Like I'll notice you are down today before I notice I'm up, right? And like it's easy to, foresee others' doom, but so then a great athlete is like developing first that awareness of like you might go through 6 contests before you come up and say, I thought I sucked, but I just got second. Well, yeah, part of it being in the flow state is you're not trying. Most of the times you've done your best performance, you feel like it wasn't so. And the ones that you feel you did well, you were not actually in that place. You were not genuinely glowing. You thought you were glowing and you weren't. So like even when you're doing it, you don't know, like it's part of it honestly happening is you don't even know it's happening to you. So first you got to do enough experiences, and like in training you have more opportunities, but people don't normally actually take the time in training situations to play the psych game. And then they reach for the psych game when they're dropping in on their one run. And I'm like, no, just like practicing the 720 25 times yesterday, you should have been practicing that psych and arrival to your IPS. So then you want to build a toolkit for athletes so that they're using different things to get to this ideal performance state, ideally. Same guy said you don't want to pull out a sledgehammer to put up a picture frame nail. You got to have a frame, a little tiny hammer and a big hammer and a jackhammer and a crane and like a gentle little like soft touch of your hand on someone's shoulder. Like it, totally building and evolving. So that's what sports psych is. And you're building like a physiological toolkits. And what I mean by that is like one of the good ones is we can all sit in our chair now and you like show me, because I can see you on your little video here, my side of the computer. Show me what it looks like to be like proud. And your arms are up and you're big and strong and chest forward. And you're like, show me what is scared. People will like crouch low down. You just dropped your chin right forward, shoulders forward and back forward. So you can mimic to me your physiology based on like your psychology, but it works the other way around. If I see you down and low, I'm going to command you to stand tall and proud. And it goes the other way where you have this like Pavlovian response to anything that will actually trigger you into the positive. And like, people mix up some stuff. Sometimes they're like imagery, use your imagery. And I'm like, oh, your visualization. Visualization is part of psych. Well, it is, but it's like real imagery. You should be able to close your eyes and hear it and feel the sun around and around and around. And then like you watching your shadow come and go as you spin this big trick. You need to be able to immediately be able to jump from judges to pipe side to your perspective to coach's top perspective in any second I ask you in your run. And like that's about psychology, because you're actually spending the time building knowns around what you're dealing with instead of freaking out over here on the side of the pipe just like hyperventilating. And like it's filling your bucket through like feeling ownership of. And like it turns out in our mind, they did this at UBC actually with a golfer in the 2010 time, and they put up to the brain waves anyway. And they got this golfer, and they got him the highest level golfer we had at UBC, and they got him to do his imagery for his swing, 100 times. And then they got him up onto strike the ball for real, and the computer showed no difference to the electrical action in his brain. So the outcome principle is that if you do it 100 times in your head and once on the jump, it's the 101st time according to your brain. If you evaluate the situation differently because you're like emotionally loading this as your first try, that's on you. And it's not actually the truth, right? Mm-hmm. That's you inventing it as the first try. But like, how do you arrive at that? Is by practice and by like experience. And no one's born with this. You got to build these skills just like building your squats, just like doing push-ups, just like doing the prone bridge. Yeah, it's everywhere. Like Andre Agassi's book, can't remember the name of it, is a huge one about fear and management and like owning your own results. And like, so it's Tom Hutchison was my coach, my dear coach, for 8 years on the national team. And we had ups and downs and we had all sorts of wonderful, amazing experiences. I credit to him all the time, my experience there and how he supported me. But now as a coach, there are many things that I took on board. Tom Hutch was this big, kind of then sort of like a bit bigger than he needed to be anymore, big, strong lad who came from freestyle skiing and stunt work. And he drove stunt motorcycles to crash them. And he like jumped off an airplane onto another airplane and got knocked out and needed them to do the remote like parachute for him. And he got better and went back and did it again. And he did high drops into the airbags. So he knew fear in a really good way, but he just came from skiing and didn't even know the names of the grabs. I'd go up there and I'd have to like change position midair and grab like stale fish instead of like indie, let's say, in the middle of a crippler. And I go back up there and he's like, do that one. What? He's like, what's that one where you grab like here? Stale fish? Like what? Stale fish? Yeah, do that one.
I remember like, okay. Tom. And I remember, I think like there was Tom who was like the head coach. And then you guys had like, I think it was Joe McAdoo. Yeah, that was like more the tech guy that like knew what was what in snowboarding. But
well, yeah, and over the years they'd always bring in different people, right? We had Abe Teeter and we had Dennis Bannock, and we had like along the way they would try and bring that side up. But Tom Hutch knew fear. He knew fear, and he knew fear in one way, and I loved it. It was that fear only comes from the unknown, because if you knew it, you wouldn't be afraid. I'm like, what? He's like, what? He's like, yeah, right? So like, I don't know, you're like frontside 5, right? You know that, yeah? You'll ever fall? I'll never fall in my life in a crippler 5 ever again in my life. Yeah. So you're not afraid of it? No. Well, then, so why are you afraid of this frontside 9? I don't know, right? So know it, understand it, do the imagery, practice a bunch, find other ways to figure it out. When we come back here, talk to me. So I come back to him and I talk him through the trick and I skip a step and he goes, stop. Again, you skipped a step. That's where the fear is, because that's where it's black and dark. You don't know the darkness. So that's what you're afraid of, because you just explained to me all the run out and then you can't wait for the heel edge to come around, blah, blah, blah. So you're afraid of what? Well, I guess it's from when I keep clipping my nose heel edge on a frontside 9 and fall 18 feet to the back of my head and then get scorpioned, right? In the ice. He's like, right. So like, if we go higher here, there to there, that won't be there. That'll be cleared. You just pull your front foot up a touch. Your nose will never catch and we're good. Right? Yeah. Right. Oh, okay. Right. So then boom, you can do frontside 9s just technically ever again, because you identified where the gap of understanding was. So like, yes, you need to be afraid right now. He'd say it's gusting winds and you got to go 18 feet out of this pipe. If you weren't afraid, I'd be like worried, but we're not fearing this trick. Run. If you're afraid of it, it's the wrong trick today. That's what I take now. So when I now am operating with years later with dozens of kids, like all these same old tricks with the same pathways, with the same challenges at this range, taking the time to address it just like that and be like, so what part of it that you don't know? And like helping young riders try and catch them from becoming afraid of certain tricks, afraid of moving forward because they're a fear. Well, that's not a problem. That's the indicator we've been waiting for to talk about the area that they don't know. And then that for me as a coach is where I'm going to now go run some drills. We're going to run the big movement, the medium movement, and we're going to get experience 35 times on that small movement. You're not afraid. No one's afraid of this anymore. We'll approach this with like truth about what we're trying to do, knowing ourselves, and like no risks because we understand it. We can operate at high hazard because we understand what we're doing. We make good choices and then we're proud of it. So we're not landing a trick because we try it. We've landed a trick because we've done 10 fundamental steps to arrive at an inevitability that we will absolutely land it. So now in my coaching, it's all about algebra. It's A plus B equals C. If you do A plus B properly, C is inevitable. It's unstoppable. If you focus any attention out of sequence on C, not one ion of thought, it will upset your ability to deliver A and B. So you are guaranteed to fail. So somehow learning to get away from like fearing outcomes or thinking about the landings, it's all about the same old, absolutely follow the A plus B and C is unstoppable. So like, and I tell this, the young people don't always get it, but like the contest isn't the day. And they told me this all the time. It's not the contest, it's the journey and all those cliches, right? But it's not the destination, it's the journey. It's so true. Like your contest today, you throw down 100% version of 80% your game. If you don't like the results today, train harder yesterday. But you can't train harder yesterday. Right. So you go train harder tomorrow. And then you can be proud of yourself the next time. But it's not about the day, because that loads it up all emotional. Like you actually watch when one of the 12 kids shows up who's actually playing this game and they're having fun all day. They are totally comfortable with whatever the results are. And they often are the ones who get on the podium by joy and by delivering clean, well, executed tricks with amplitude, with that poke in the middle of it, all the way to the end of the rail. And they get the medal. And they weren't even like the ones that are still operating at that high intention and high effort. Like they have a tougher go. And they're going to be hard on themselves when they fail. And then our job is to say, no, except for everything well you did. But I'm just always trying to figure out ways to, like, you can't speak to youth about investment. You can't speak to kids about sacrifice or injury prevention until they've been broken off. And that's so sad. But we sure can offer. We can try. I think young people, I think all of us, if I give you a standard, I'll be lucky if you hit halfway. So I'm accused of coming in pretty like high energy and like high expectations. Well, that's just because like I'm trying to do my thousands. I'm trying to do my 10% game here, right? So if I present to you the absolute highest expectation of excellence and you get halfway, I'm proud, real proud of you. Anyway, just for showing up, I'll be proud. But if I showed you like a modified fun, like I'll modify and deliver it fun, but I don't mean that. I just mean if I come at you with 50% and you give me 50%, you get to a quarter and I'm supposed to be proud of my work. I don't think so. So I just think, like I never take credit from athletes, and like, they're the ones that do the runs. They're the ones that take the fall. They learn the tricks. It's the same trick ladder you and I faced. I love our sport. Like the trick ladder waits. No one can get around any of it. And if you do, you're going to face it again anyway on the next 180s. Like you have to pay the same dues, same in skateboarding. And I love our sport for that. But like, I just think that I want to try and help and share and like create opportunities. And like, that's where I'm going with my legacy now. I'm really thinking that way. And like, I want a club where it's fun for my daughter to have friends and like peers who are doing together what the group wants to do, whatever level that is of intensity. I want them to have facilities. I want them to be safe with their coaches. I want them to be like affordable, but I want it to be like rewarding for them so that when they go out, not to become Olympians, but to go out to be young adults and choose their schools or to become young business people or to go make their families, that they're like a more like a fuller person for engaging with their teammates and for having challenged themselves, for having been beat up a few times and like seeing that it's okay. Like you'll get over, every injury will be in the past one day. Every one of them, the worst, will one day be in the past. And that's what I've learned in these years. And then that's what I want for my daughter. I want her too busy on the weekend to be in a fuss on Friday night. You know what I mean? And that can't come from me. I can't do that. I'm just going to try and facilitate it. I want to have a community that can keep a group of coaches viable, that can keep kids having fun, but like we can also make it so they can like be competitive, because I want people to experience some of what I got to experience. I want young athletes to know that like there's no money in it. It's just about you. And if you feel it deeply, go for it. And it's going to take you 20 years and it's going to take a long time, and you don't stop. Like I didn't touch a snow half pipe till 19. I didn't do the Olympics till 25. I did it my best experiences in what was an important part of my life at 33, 34 years old. and it was harder, but that's when the quality was the highest. And now our sport's so awesome, there's no end to it. You just go and get better. Every time I snowboard, I find something I learn. Every year I find something else and I am open to others. I watch every snowboarder on the chair below me, and I love to go in behind people and I mimic them. I go behind you and I'll do what you're doing. I'm not making fun. I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on. I come up to you and I say, I think your binding's at 21 degrees. I think you should put it at 28 and widen that back foot, and walk away. And you think I'm just talking crazy talk. But I figured out just by being you for a few minutes, because that's what I get a buzz on, you know? I just love it. And like,
It's
yeah, I don't know. That's the kind of thing I like to do.
yeah, that's the true love of the sport. And you know, yeah, I'm not snowboarding the way I was 20 years ago. My legs probably can't handle the jumps I used to be able to handle, but now I'm doing completely different stuff. I'm hitting powder,
Yeah.
I'm enjoying split boarding. It's a different
Yeah, right. Goes
experience.
on and on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, one time I had a real bad knee from the adventures, and I was early, maybe one or two here at Silver Star, and all the kids in my crew were goofy, like 5 or 6 of them. And I had this terrible front knee, and I went to a course in Big Blackcomb. Oh, it was my 25th year snowboarding. Does that make sense? Anyway, and I just like switched my bindings to goofy while the beginning of the coaching course, and we were all these legends and all these awesome dudes I hadn't seen in forever. But I was having a hard time because I was fresh off the scene, and I was like, yeah, it was like my 20th. Gosh, is it that much? It might have been my 20th year, and I didn't have a personal goal or something. And I'm like, this is wrong, and I've never started it without a goal or whatever, right? And I just switched to goofy. Well, I just switched to goofy and decided I would only do it. And then like the very evening, we were at our backyard rail jam, and I'm like, well, that didn't take long to test yourself, huh, buddy? Like, are you gonna switch your bindings back and just suck this up so you can do some dope rails for the crew? Are you gonna like own this? Because they don't care about you. Like, you're doing this for you, and why don't you see if you can even touch that rail with your nose because you're riding goofy? Sure enough, went into it. I did 3 years riding goofy, and you cannot believe what I learned. Not the stuff I thought I was going to learn, all the things I presumed I would like spend time on. Absolutely not. It took me in 3 years. I did about 3 methods I was happy with. 3 in 3 years, because it's so hard to
so
snowboard,
hard.
and like the things we take for granted and the little movements and like the coolest things were just like, I was like fully heel sliding through all the trees. And like today, I swear to God, I'm going to like go from toe to heel in those tight trees today. I swear I'll do it. And then I didn't, and I was bummed on myself for a whole day till I got back there. And like, it was so rewarding, and I learned so much, and I could coach so differently, and I could, you know what I mean? And it was so fun. And then one day, 3 years later, Monster came through with their border style here, and my wife would not let me do it goofy. So I switched to regular. I gave myself like 3 days to get used to it. And it was really, really hard to switch again, because there was a whole bunch that you actually have to like, your whole brain was backwards. Like there's something about left and right brain, or something was like really, really bunch of learning. And then, yeah, I never kind of went back to goofy after that, because suddenly I got to do all these crazy little movements and all these things I'd forgotten that like I had walked away from 20 years of doing, but now is like 23 years. And now I'm like, oh my God, I just got so frothy. So it worked. This one little like moment with the screwdriver. Oh man, it shook me fundamentally for ages.
So
I loved
riding
it.
3 years like that, you should go do the legendary bank slalom.
Yeah. Well, no, but I don't know, because it's supposed to like, we don't do switch, we do fakie. And that's the point of that race, because if you just start switching your binders, like
It's not the same.
oh man, it's so fun. It's so hard. I respect that. The switch is like, anyway, really fun. So I encourage everybody, like anyone on earth can get better or find ways to improve or be challenged without having to do it in the air or on or in the risk or on the ice, or like, There's so many ways. Like, you want to get better at snowboarding, you have a bad knee, so you don't snowboard. Get to the gym, young woman. Get that strength back. Get more flexible than you are required, and you will not have a sore knee, and get back on that board. I don't know everyone's story, but I'm of that attitude, like, it's just youthful silliness if you think you gotta do it like X Games. You gotta wear the right clothes, or there's a time for that for everyone. But later on, it's about togetherness and community and futures. And like anyone who's been snowboarding for 25, 30 years and you're not engaging in your local community or your club, please revisit that. Like, invest some time and energy into the kids. Even if you don't have a kid but you love snowboarding, go and get on the Canada Snowboard Training Pathway. Share your passion with kids. One day a week. No program can work anywhere without coaches playing the game and getting themselves certified. And then no club can be there without parents who like ask for it or reach out for it, or because like it's going to be hard enough to find great snowboard coaches. They're not necessarily going to be good at marketing their products, and you got to build the relationships, the club or the ski hill or someone, to help together. And like, work has to be done, heavier lifting has to be done, but it doesn't have to be done alone. And people are like brilliant in their work, and they can bring their toolkit with them, that all their skills to build a great club. And like, I encourage everyone to know it's 1,000 things makes a great coach. You're lucky if you have any one, and like, no coach is going to be everything to all those people, but you get like a few coaches and you got each other's backs and you're spreading it across, and I don't know. I'm real passionate about that.
Absolutely.
You can hear,
I think
but
like
it's doable.
but building a community is becoming like not that easy. I'm finding in snowboarding, we're having quite a few parents that snowboard, but instead of putting their kids in snowboarding, they're putting them in skiing, or parents are feeling not adequate to be involved, which is totally not true. Like, you don't need to be, a past competitor or, you know, super advanced snowboarder to be involved and volunteer, or help. Like, sometimes we just need someone to spot the jump, or like,
Yeah, definitely. And like, you'll never know unless you ask. And if you don't share that you have some time, or you have you're like, well, actually, I'm an accountant, so what do I know about snowboarding? I don't know. You could run our spreadsheets for this contest real well, help us
yeah,
organize. You could run the registration admin every fall. That'd be great, sir. Thank you. And like,
exactly.
anyway, it takes a group, and that's life. You want happiness, you can like get involved with some others, do some work that's not just about you, and be accountable with others in a shared adventure. Well, that's happiness, and that's sport clubbing. And then you can be proud of yourself and have fun. But I mean, that's just I'm always going to come
And
up with something like that. But I'm just like I said, I'm grateful I came up sort of through teaching, and then through the sort of the coaching, and then into competing, and then into sort of traveling, a bit of coaching, and then some time out, and then back to coaching and competing and coaching again. So like, I think that it's definitely one of the ways, if you want to snowboard for a life, get into sharing it
mhm.
with others, because the better and more time you spend, the more valuable you'll be. And the more time you spend in the game, the more you'll be able to like understand the industry and the opportunities. And then you'll ultimately be like, one of the real, if you last long enough. My whole attitude's always been, if you work harder than the guy next to you, one day you'll be on top and maybe have the game to stay for a bit. And that's the thing, a little combo of that. I think, like, really, we can all be doing this for many years. We can keep
No,
enjoying
I
our sport.
completely agree. Like, the community is the key. No one wants to be really snowboarding alone. And,
Mm.
I think of the kids out there. There's like my kids, they love snowboarding. But at a certain point in time, they want friends to snowboard with. They don't want to just be snowboarding with mom
Yeah,
and dad all the time. Um,
right.
and if there's no other little snowboarders to snowboard with, like, who do they have to look up to? Who do they have to snowboard with, to experience it with?
Yeah.
Um, so there's we could go into a whole discussion here about even like, finding the right gear for kids. Like that's also a barrier
Mhm.
we found when we brought up like
Yeah.
I think our oldest is a little bit older than your daughter, Crispin. He's 11, but when he started snowboarding, they didn't even make boots his size. And
Yeah, right. Certainly
no,
not
there
quality
there were no
or up to
boots
their
his
riding.
size.
Yeah.
Like the
Mhm.
smallest boot
Mhm.
was Burton making like a size 12.
I think there's like one brand. There's one brand making a cambered board in the small sizes, but some of these little people are ready for a
Yeah.
real board. But anyway, that's the shift I think that's really happening now. Is we are now that group. We're the
Yep.
buying power now. We do have the kids. I'm seeing it with all the step-on-ism, binding wise. I mean, these are indicators that like they're getting it. I watched Brian Iguchi returning to the Volcom advertising stuff. More Jamie Lynn. Like that's right. So it should
Mhm.
be. We're the what, like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody went away. They don't disappear like some hockey player who just goes to Florida to golf forever. No, everyone's still, they're all out there. All our original second gen pros, they're all making POW surfboards and they're all making films and docs now. And they're all returning to sport because they've had kids and they've been chasing them and they're back in their gear. And like, I'm just so grateful that we're at this. Like I've been able to see snowboarding in the years I've been able to see it and watch all this like evolving a bit. But now we're looking a bit more like a sport where you can have multi generations doing it, but we're still not there yet. We don't know. We don't know how old we can do it. Like I thought I conceded to just a shriveled lump of injury, but I found the right physio and he's changed my life. After decades, I decided I would just, well, no, 2010, I got a knee thing and he just fixed it. And that was 15 years I had conceded to injury and a limiter of my life. And like, and now I get to hopefully, if I work hard enough, I stay strong enough, I can go keep learning my beautiful sport I love so much, right? And we don't know what our sport's like, and I'm just so grateful I'm in this time, and I just want to have an impact. Like I hear from athletes I've worked with and all, but like I want to be proud of what I've done now for others instead of just my thing. My thing was just like, and I knew it at the time. This is just information gathering for a bigger
Mhm.
day, and I've seen some of these bigger days now, and I want to try and keep being proud of what
Yeah.
I've done, and I want to keep investing in my future
No, yeah.
life.
And
So
snowboarding
that's
is
it.
still growing, like you're saying. Like the story is not over. We're not like into 2 or 3 generations in of snowboarding,
That's it.
which is really interesting. Um, and we're
Mm-hmm.
we're really lucky to be, part of that growing the sport. Okay.
Totally. Well, here we are. We're doing a podcast over the internet, sharing these stories, linking Canada, right? Like it's awesome where it's at, and we got to keep doing this. Thank you so much for having me out here. I think
Yes.
this is great, and I think I'm honored to be here on the
All
chairlift with
right.
you. And I hope we can chat soon
Crispin, thank
again.
you so much.
And I am grateful that you brought me in on these discussions because there's so much stuff to think about. We've got a history to like learn, and we've got like shared culture to try and keep going, and we've got language we want to share with our kids, and
Mhm.
I think it's so grateful. But so thanks very much for having me on,
Before I
and
let you go,
and
Crispin,
don't
where can listeners find you?
um probably unlikely because I like to hide out when I'm not up on the mountain. But here at Silver Star, I run the Tree Line Park, and so you can check out Tree Line Park BC on Instagram and Facebook, I suppose, a bit. And um, I think I've done a whole bunch of some pretty cool waxing stuff in the past on my own Facebook and Instagram. Some pretty thorough how tos and various adventures. Always making little films, so check that stuff out. And we've just basically, we have a art shop and gallery up here at Silver Star Mountain. So check out Vaz Art Gallery. Some of the most beautiful art and paintings. I'm sitting right now in a cedar cabin here from the 30s that I rebuilt into a studio and gallery space. So I've been hanging here amongst the art and half finished pieces, and it's really cool scene. So come check it out if you're ever in the Okanagan. We're also always looking for young athletes who want to join our groups, and we've got great high school programming and opportunities for almost full year training stuff. So I'm always looking for young, driven kids with the attitude to get better and come and join our crew.
Oh, we would love to do that. Thank you so much, Crispin, and
No
enjoy the rest
worries.
of your day, and let's raise the bar.
Thank you. Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with Crispin Lipscomb. If you enjoyed this show, I would really appreciate it if you smash that 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the listening app of your choice, and leave us a review. We'll read it online, and you have a chance to win a really sweet 686 cozy for your drinks this summer. Next thing is find in our show notes a link to enter the draw for 2 Grom Stone snowboards. We have a 130 centimeters to be drawn, as well as a 115 centimeter board to be drawn. That is the KISS model. We will be drawing those boards at the end of March, and all proceeds will go to help support the Mavericks Snowboard Club that is there to develop young athletes and introduce them to competitive snowboarding in the Ottawa-Gatineau area. Anyway, that should get your kids out there shredding. I hope you enjoyed the show again. Hope you tune in next week for our next episode. Shred on and let's raise the bar for Canadian snowboarding.